Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar this morning. We're absolutely delighted that you've been able to join us. Our webinar this morning is Ways to Reduce Your Energy Costs and Environmental Impact. We're really pleased to be joined today by Matt Tebbit, Head of Bars and Dining at the University of Reading and Sustainability Chair for the university's caterers organisation TUCO. We've seen a huge growth in the prioritisation of sustainability across the industry, and clearly there's a large scale and rapid action needed to tackle climate change, and that the rising cost of energy is also a concern for many. Looking at what you can do can be daunting. It's often difficult to identify the practical steps you can take to make the most of your menu and make your business sustainable whilst managing your costs. The great thing about Matt's work with the teams at Reading University is that it's not only practical but research-led. As he'll tell you, he'll also tell you how you can identify where you'll be able to reduce costs and add to your bottom line too. This session today was pre-recorded, so we'll be sharing the video with you very shortly. And also there's a few helpful slides at the end of the session with some useful links for you. So do stay on for that. We'll also be sharing Matt's slides after the session along with this video, so do look out for that going live on the event video portal. But you can ask any questions that you like as we go. Just do that using the Q&A function in your Zoom controls and we'll answer them all at the end. We do hope you enjoyed today's session and find it really useful.
Hello, I would like to start off with explaining this graphic in front of us. This is a graphical representation of air temperatures, average air temperatures in the UK. So on the far left, we have 1901, and you can see we have lots of deep blues. And then slowly, as we progress towards 2021, which is on the far right, you can see the temperatures getting redder, so hotter. And I think this is a really good way of seeing in a visual format the importance of sustainability. We know that crops, for example, will struggle in the future with warming temperatures, even if we shunt them all around to different areas of the world. Things like CO2 do have an effect on how they grow. About Reading. Reading University is a red brick university. We were originally part of Oxford and eventually achieved independence from Oxford between the two world wars. We have about 17,000 students and about 5,000 staff. On the far right, you can see a picture of an orchard. We are heavily involved in food systems. So we have our own farms. We look after the National Fruit Collection. We look at food all the way through the supply chain and into consumers, look at consumer health, nutrition. So we think we're pretty good at food. In the middle, you can see a picture of our pilot plant at the bottom. This is where we can miniaturize manufacturing processes, so we understand the sort of commercial world of food. And then on the right, you can see one of our nature reserves, which is also part of one of our farms. Very uniquely, we have several products which we produce in-house. So beef is one of them. So we don't buy any beef externally. It's all from our own farms, butchered to our own specifications. And in the picture on the bottom right, we have Aberdeen Angus grazing there, and those cows are involved in grassland restoration and helping improve biodiversity. Into Menus of Change. Menus of Change is a really interesting framework for all operators. It was developed by the Culinary Institute of America and the Harvard School of Public Health. It's 16 really easy to follow principles. And as you can see here, things about being transparent, buying fresh, rewarding better agricultural practices, reducing sugar, serving less red meat. So these are broadly split into two categories. So we've got the ones on the left, which are menu concepts and general operations. Then on the right, we have foods and ingredients. These concepts are followed by a large number of universities internationally. as well as some very large contract caterers, such as the Google Food Program, who provide all their workplace food, and LinkedIn is another good example. The advantage of these principles is they've been researched, and they're based on academic research, but have been put into practice and brought alive for operators by the Culinary Institute of America. So these are people that know our world and understand what it is to be chefs, caterers. The logo above that you see above the Culinary Institute of America's logo is the Menus of Change University Research Collaborative. This is a really interesting group of universities, around 71 universities that are research intensive in and around food, who are also committed to the Menus of Change principles in their own catering operations, and then want to work out how to apply academic research into the real world of hospitality, and also using these university hospitality settings to provide information back into the academic community to see what they can learn from us. These graphics you can freely download at the web address below. I'd like to talk a little bit about being plant forward, as this is one of the key principles of Menus of Change. So being plant forward is hugely advantageous for both us financially, for people in terms of nutrition, and also the environment through using less meat. It isn't about being plant-based and insisting everyone turns vegan, as we don't believe that is a successful way to go. We can achieve more by reducing meat to our meat eaters, but not eliminating it, then trying to convert people to be vegans. So here we have a burger and some mushrooms. One of the things you can do, again, based on research and testing, is using mushrooms, which are cheaper than meat, add those into your burgers, so up to 20%, and then you have a sort of mushroom beef combination. And the idea is the mushrooms, you can't taste the mushrooms, but it brings the benefit of less meat, better nutrition, and it's also cheaper, which is really fascinating, and things that you can talk to your customers about. You don't need to hide the fact that you've added mushrooms, but I think people really understand the positives of it, especially with things like calorie labeling. This again can be very advantageous. Continuing with being plant forward, lentils are an awesome ingredient to use in your cooking. So here we've got some mince as well. So bolognese being a really good example. So add some lentils to your mince. Lentils are high in protein, really healthy, cheap as well. So again, you can make your meat go further. You can improve people's health. You can improve their nutrition. You can help the environment. These are all really amazing things that you can do, and sort of win-win-win for everyone. Lastly, I've got a chocolate brownie. So we use quinoa quite widely in brownies. Again, in Menus of Change principles, you'll find some really interesting principles, one of which is using more whole grains. So quinoa is a good example of a grain that we don't really use. A lot of people that are intolerant to wheat will eat quinoa. So our brownie is vegan. Although we never market it as a vegan brownie, because we know from our research and other universities' research, it's literally the worst thing you can do to a menu item is lead with it being vegan. This is a really tasty brownie. It's not vegan. You don't need to write that it's vegan. You can write it's suitable for vegans. And through the research that we've done, we know that if you label it as just a brownie, you'll probably sell it 5 times. Well, you'll sell 5 times the quantity than if you sold it as vegan. The Veggies Toolkit is a really amazing resource that you can find on the Menus of Change website. And this was based around a piece of research around looking at getting people to eat more veg. Again, we know veg is cheaper, it's better for the environment and better for human health. So again, we're hitting those three criteria. The main thing about vegetables is if you want to sell them, this research showed that you need to talk about why they're tasty, the enjoyable attributes of them, and then people are more likely to choose them. So don't talk about health, because you'll, again, like vegan, turn a large number of people off, either consciously or subconsciously. This toolkit you can find, as I said, on the Menus Change website, and has loads of really good ideas on how to do this that are ready-made. Protein Flip, again, this is another toolkit you can find online, running along the lines of the burger that we've just seen. So this will talk you through concepts on how to reduce meat on your menus, again, saving you money, helping people's health, and also helping the planet. I'd like to move into energy next, because this is really topical. Again, there's loads of opportunities here to save money and help the environment. So we recently changed all our Combi Ovens. We metered them all before we did it. We then switched over to a new Combi Oven. It was uniform across the estate, and then measured it again. Being a university gives us amazing access to lots of very interesting people with amazing tools. We found that the current energy prices in the way we used ovens, so it doesn't necessarily apply to everyone, we made a 79% saving in energy use, which equates to a 15-month payback. So that means from the point of installing the oven, we have to wait 15 months for the savings to have paid for the new oven. That's pretty amazing. And these are really expensive pieces of kit, but it shows you how much money these ovens use and and how much energy is being used by your kitchens. Another great example we found as we investigated energy use around our kitchens was extract fans. This is a particularly extreme example. We found a fan that was using around 21k of energy a year in electricity. Interestingly, it was only operating 5 days a week, because it was a campus centre site, so it wasn't in a residential setting. We spent £3,000 on changing the fan over, and that gave us a 18 grand saving a year, which I think everyone would agree 18 grand back is amazing. Gain on energy. I would urge you all to think about the cost of equipment as you're buying it versus how much it's going to cost you to run. So in the case of a fridge, it's typically you're looking at the cost of buying a fridge is 5% of the total life cycle cost of the fridge. So when you're like, oh, not sure whether I should buy the more energy efficient one or not, think that the cost of your equipment is 5%. The energy to run it is the 95%, and you're paying that every month, month in, month out. So I would really urge you all to really think about kit as you're changing it, because there's massive opportunities to save money by spending a tiny bit more. I think most people would agree spending 6% on your fridge as total cost to reduce your energy consumption would be amazing. Lastly, behaviour change. Behaviour change is another really easy area and cheap area to make changes. So incentivize your staff to change the way they work. Get them to think of examples on how to save energy. We all have kitchens where we have multiple pieces of kit to help us deal with busier times. Do all those pieces of kit need to be on every day? Do we have quieter days? Is Monday our quietest day? And Mother's Day is our busiest day. So let's scale back the amount of appliances we turn on. Do we need to keep a grill on all day? One of my colleagues was telling me if you tell staff that you're watching them, they managed to prove that staff used less energy because they started thinking, I must save energy, so I'll turn off the salamander grill when I'm not using it in the afternoon. How long does a piece of kit take to heat up? These are all questions that you can answer in your own kitchens. Turning off lights at night, all these small things all give us or add to the savings that we can make on our sites. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for that, Matt. That was incredibly insightful. We're now just going to go to sharing resources with you and the Q&A. So I will just get some slides to help you back up on screen. Okay, so we've got a couple of helpful links here which support what Matt was saying. So the first one is the link to find out more about Menus and Change at Reading University. So that will give you access to those other links that Matt mentioned, but we will share Matt's slides along with the video on the video page on our event site after this session. So look out for that going on there in the next couple of days. So that will contain all the little links that you saw during Matt's presentation. And the other really useful page that you can go to actually is the Menu of Change page on the TUCO website. And there's a great benchmarking tool on there to kind of help you assess where you are in your sustainability journey. And again, lots of great ideas. And then we've got obviously lots of other video and webinars that you can tap into as a result of the event. So you can go onto the video page in the virtual event website and you can find the link here, but if you go to the event homepage and follow the link to watch the video, you can go on and see not only this video in a couple of days when we've popped it on the site with Matt's slides, but you can also go on there and watch any of the other videos that you want to from our previous events. And there's lots of other ideas on there about minimizing waste. There was a great session we did on navigating costs earlier on in the year, with lots of top tips on how best to use your freezer and that kind of thing. So lots more ideas there if you didn't catch it the first time. And then if we could go into the Q&A. Hi, Matt. Just have a look and see if we've got any questions come through. So we've got a question here about the main reasons for looking at sustainability. Matt, what kind of sparked all of this, I guess, at Reading University? I know obviously it's becoming increasingly in people's consciousness now, but I guess this is quite a big piece of work that you guys have done to look at this. So just be really helpful, perhaps just share a little bit around what sort of started you on this journey.
So I think originally it was probably quite heavily based around cost. We have a huge estate just within our catering service. So we're spread across 28 buildings and different sites, spanning 3 local authority areas. So it's a fairly big operation in its own right. But also the sort of emergence of climate as one of the university's key sort of academic areas of expertise. And this was quite early on combined with their love of food. So Reading's sort of farm to fork research. And this is, I think when your customers are experts like in their fields around food and climate, you sort of have to start driving the standard up. But I think we also discovered that a lot of it wasn't expensive. It wasn't capital intensive. This isn't something the university spent loads of capital investment in. It's more changing the way you operate and using what you have. So it could be from changing a light bulb all the way through to the bigger pieces of equipment. It's enjoyable and rewarding, and it helps us operationally because we're spending less on our energy than we would be if we'd done nothing. So I think they're all really good reasons. So a mix of sustainability and money.
Yeah, and I guess you've got lots of different types of kitchens, have you not, across your estate too, and different types of setup. So that makes it quite interesting, an interesting challenge as well, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's probably a common misconception that universities trade in one style. We trade across. So just before the pandemic, for example, we had one team feeding the Queen while also feeding students. And then we operate pubs, cafes, canteens, fine dining, private dining. So we operate across a huge range of different styles and concepts. So we get to see and work out the best solutions for a broad range of business types. But yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah. It is the size of a small town in its own right, and I think that's what people forget. We're one of the smaller universities with 17,000 students, around 5,000 staff, plus several thousand more people working on our campuses.
Yeah, and I guess actually what you were saying about almost like starting with light bulbs and the fact you've got a bigger kit that you can look at as well, I guess there's something everyone could arguably do to reduce waste. You could, if you weren't in a position to necessarily change all your kit out, there's probably some smaller things that you could do.
Yeah, I think 100%. The oven kit was one of our biggest things that single things we'd done, but just changing people's or your staff's attitude towards like behavioral change can be
Yeah,
free, or you could buy a box of chocolates to incentivize them. Then your light bulb gets a bit more expensive, and you can scale up. But it's really scary how quickly those savings, as you said at the start dropping to your bottom line.
yeah.
And especially if you try and reuse some of that saving to do more, then you effectively create a snowball of, okay, we're going to save money and put it to our bottom line, but we're actually going to take some of it and put it back in to bring more money to the bottom line. And energy is generally, it's fairly instant.
Yeah,
I think it's a belief or a way of working rather than if you want to do it, you can do it, and you don't really need the money to do it. You can do it on virtually nothing to begin with.
yeah, and I guess you could put together a bit of a plan. So it could be an actual, I suppose, piece of activity that you do to look at where the biggest savings could come from, and then perhaps having a bit of a plan to work towards how you can make those savings. You can work out if there are things you can do instantly or things that you need to do a bit over time, and then kind of work out a bit of a strategy for how you're going to get there and measure as you go as best you can.
Absolutely, and there's loads of if you can't measure, there's people like the Carbon Trust who've got loads of interesting information about where you'll be spending money. So say with pubs and bars, it's really like cellars are generally a massive drain on energy. So are they insulated? Shut the door.
Yeah,
But yeah, as you say, start drawing up a plan and start thinking about what do you use electricity and gas for. They go hand in hand. It's more expensive energy and than your food probably, and you just need to treat it as something that you're paying someone for it. So 100% do a plan and start thinking about where you can save, and your customers shouldn't notice.
yeah. And I guess with lots of different sites and different setups, Matt, have you had any challenges with getting teams on board with being considerate about their energy use and switching things off? And how have you guys found that?
We incentivize. We put our teams against each other, so got competitive fairly quickly, which has been really helpful. And then we also, obviously being a university with lots of students, the university do a switch off once a year, where students go around buildings switching stuff off.
Oh, wow.
So students going into our catering outlets and sticking post-it notes on equipment saying, why is this on? Is fairly fairly effective, which was a really nice way of doing it. I think the post-it notes said this is bang out of order or something on them.
You can have some fun with it, I guess.
Yeah, no, it should be fun and it should be enjoyable, and I think the majority of people are on board with energy saving, and it's just rethinking the way we all work. And yeah, I mean, I think anyone with kids and stuff, it's like we're looking after the place for the next generation. And it doesn't need to be big and scary and awful thing to do, and it can benefit us as operators.
Yeah,
I would say the best operators are probably the ones that are conscious of it now, because it makes business sense to do it.
absolutely. So just, I guess, turning back to food, and that interesting example that you gave of adding mushrooms to a burger, just wondering kind of how that has been received by, I mean, obviously students, like you say, probably at the top end of being super switched on about this stuff, but just wondering, I guess, how that's been received and whether or not you've got any learnings from sort of implementing that at all.
We did test our burger on a colleague that hates mushrooms. So that if you can find someone that hates whatever you're blending it with, that's always a really, really helpful approach. But no, I mean, it's literally there's been no comments back. That no one's written in and complained or said my burger now tastes of mushrooms, or my chili tastes of lentils. I think it's be mindful of it and don't go over the top.
Yeah.
So we spent a lot of time playing with the percentages on our burgers to get it to a level we thought was acceptable. But people really, our customers are, we tell our customers and they're really happy. They're like, oh, it's healthier then. And then we could also explain to them verbally. We don't really write this down, and we're like, well, it's also helping us control our costs.
Yeah.
Because we just pass everything on to you.
Yeah.
So I don't know, calorie labeling as well. It's made the burgers look a lot better.
Yeah.
No, it's 100% nothing to be scared of. And I think the reality is a lot of things like beef burgers do have other ingredients in them, and maybe traditionally that was the sort of cheaper end of product. And we moved into this market where 100% beef was the thing to do. But I think if you can explain to your customers clearly and honestly what you've done, then they'll generally accept it and think it's a good thing.
Yeah, and I guess, like you say, there's probably smart ingredients you can work with or start with, like a burger, where traditionally it might have onions in it, or you know, I don't know, chili jam or something like that. You know, you can probably again have some fun with engineering your menu so it's slightly less meat heavy, slightly more veg included, and actually, you know, you can start with things, I guess, that customers would think intuitively might have other ingredients in them anyway. That's probably a good place to start.
Yeah, schools, ironically, are a really good source of this sort of stuff, because they have been doing it for years. And while we 100% aren't in the sort of school food market, there's some really good ideas that can be moved into restaurants. And I think also I think people forget how school food is so much better than it ever has been. And the standards of food are pretty amazing. So there's loads of really good ideas you can pick up from schools and just Googling, and in terms of the sort of Ofsted food standards, and they while they may not be your final answer, it's a really good source of inspiration in terms of like, how am I going to make this more plant-based or more heavy? So go and look at an industry like schools, which is highly regulated with nutritional standards, and see what inspiration you can take out. And as we have moved into a 4-star hotel. And there are all these great resources. So I think it's be creative and let your chefs be creative, and you can find some amazing solutions.
I guess that's a really good prompt, actually, to say that on the Breaks website, you know, we've got some great sector pages on there. There's a great schools hub, for example, with lots of menu plans that you can go and have a look at for some inspiration of dishes you can do. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff on the Breaks website you can kind of tap into for free. If you do want to check out some of those menu planners. I'll just double check we haven't had any other questions through. No other questions, Matt. So if there's nothing else that we wanted to cover, perhaps we'll leave it there for today. That was such a brilliant session. Thank you so much. And we'll obviously email out everybody to let you know that the video's up on the website as well in the next few days. Matt, huge thanks for everything that you've shared.
Thank you.
Today. All right. Have a great rest of the day.
You too. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye.